Hello, everyone, and welcome to Education in South Asia, Planning Equitable and Accessible Education for All Post-Pandemic, a workshop at Alternative Education Resource Organization AERO Conference 2022. I am Sheen from India, and I'll be the host and panel member of this event. I am joined by fellow panelists Devyanee Dalmia from India and Anum Khalid from Pakistan. We will begin today's event with introductions.
I'm Devyanee, a 15-year-old student from India. I'm passionate about human rights and youth activism in all forms possible and have started an organization called Account Foundation, which is now an international nonprofit organization. It aims to provide vocational education to underprivileged students. We have raised over 1.2 lakh rupees and directly impacted over 150 people through Account in less than 1 year. I also am the host of the Ek Start podcast, which aims to make Ek Start or the first step towards important and meaningful conversations that has the potential to make one's surroundings ekansh or undivided. I'm also the founder president of Girl Up Poll Club at Girl Up. I have interned in the fields of event and social media management in organizations like Sanmark in the Daily, Red Lantern Analytica, VS Studio, and Abrajita. I constantly wish to expand my horizons and learn more each day. So that's about me. I would now like to call upon Anum to introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Devyanee. This is me, Anum Khalid from Pakistan. I'm 23 years old and I'm currently working as a women activist, and I'm also an Aurat March activist. And I have been working for left politics in my university and I've been leading the top feminist student collective and as well as progressive student collective. I've been member of the hashtag Learning Planet as a sustainability leader, and the other one is I'm working as a fellow for Awareness 360, whereas I call and identify myself as a staunch feminist and a thalassemia activist. Other than that, I am currently a co-founder of Coach Across Community, and in future, I'm going to be lead entrepreneur in from Pakistan, the youngest entrepreneur. So that's what about me, and over to you, Sheen.
Thank you, Devyanee and Anam, for your introductions. Hello, everyone. I am Sheen Tyagi, a 17-year-old youth activist from India. I am passionate about women's rights, climate change, sustainable development, and children's education and welfare socially, and business, economics, and finance academically. I'm the founder president of the Girl Up Nation Club, an international club at the Girl Up campaign by the United Nations Foundation, UNF. I am also a part of the Girl Up HK staff as co-chair of Arts Club. I am a youth fellow at Learning Planet by CRI Paris and UNESCO. I'm also a junior fellow at Debate Spaces and a young climate advocate at YACA, Young Climate Advocates Network by the United Nations Foundation. I'm working as a research project director at UNGO Finance and Markets Working Group by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. I am currently working as community organizer at She is the Universe project and as the communications director at Sustainable Development Initiatives, SUDEV in Cameroon, which is an NGO. That's about me. I will now pass the mic to Devyanee to tell you the purpose behind this workshop.
Thank you, Sheen. The purpose behind this workshop is very crucial to understand numerous factors. A good understanding of the education system is essential to understand how and why a country is able or not able to progress. This workshop was planned as to understand South Asian education and find the common elements, discuss the flaws in our current education system, compare the education system here to that of Western countries, and come up with reforms that can help us move in the desired direction. Moving on, we would now like to talk about some common and important facts to set a base about education system in South Asian countries, which include Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. Anam will now take the floor to give you a background of the South Asian education system.
Thank you, Devyanee. This is what about the background of South Asian countries. While great strides have been made in improving school enrollment and completion in South Asia, more than 50% of children living in learning poverty, unable to read and understand a simple text by age 10, and 12.5 million children at the primary level and 16.5 million children at the lower secondary level are out of school. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, millions of children complete primary education without mastering the foundation skills of basic numeracy and literacy, let alone the 21st century skills required for meaningful employment, personal well-being, and active participation. These existing challenges in access to education and quality learning and skills have been exhibited by the COVID-19 pandemic, and the impact of the crisis continue to disrupt the education of children and affect of approximately 434 million learners. And in addition, an estimated 22 million children from South Asia have been missed out on early childhood education in their critical preschool year as COVID-19 shut childcare and early education facilities.
Thank you, Anam. We will now discuss the historical education system in South Asia. South Asia is known particularly for its cultural and linguistic heterogeneity, a feature influenced by both its topography and its history. In the ancient days, most of the education was imparted orally by the sages and the scholars, and the information was passed on from one to the other generation. After the development of letters and paper, it took the form of writing using the palm leaves and the bark of trees. This also helped in spreading the written literature. The history of education in South Asia reflected and extended the influence and teachings of three major philosophical religious traditions: Hinduism, including Buddhism, Islam, and Confucianism, including Neo Confucianism. Modern times saw the spread of Western and Oriental education by traders and rulers from Western countries. The amalgamation of both the South Asian education system and Western education system produced a mixed education system which was followed out on varying degrees. Overall, it is safe to say that the South Asian education system has undergone huge and remarkable changes over the course of time. Moving on, we now discuss the current education system of South Asian countries. South Asia has a population of over 1.7 billion living in nations with unique trajectories of development. All the countries in South Asia are grappling with processes of economic change and widening inequity, negotiating cross-border and domestic conflict, and the politics of cultural revivalism and patriarchy threatening a democratic social order. Inequality in educational attainment in the region of South Asia is large. A crucial reason for this is low investment in education. I now give the floor to Devyanee to discuss and tell you what are the countries that we talk about today and why.
Thank you, Sheen. So, in order to give out accurate information to all of you, we have decided to only share information about the education system of Pakistan and India because that is where we're from and have first-hand experience of the same. And then go on to discuss the flaws and common factors of all South Asian countries. Please do know that all the viewpoints presented here are from ours and others' personal experiences. Moving on, talking about the education system of India, education in India has a rich and interesting history. The temples and the community centers formed the roles of schools in the ancient India. Later, the Gurukul system of education came into existence. The Gurukuls were the traditional Hindu residential schools of learning, which were typically in the teacher's house or a monastery. At the Gurukuls, the teacher imparted knowledge on various aspects of religion, the scriptures, philosophy, literature, warfare, statecraft, and so much more. The present system of education was introduced and founded by the British in the 20th century. The British government did not recognize the traditional structures of India, and their neglect led to the decline of the traditional Indian education system. The central government, through the Ministry of Human Resource Development's Department of Education, and the governments at various states formulated the education policy and planning. The education system is mainly divided into primary, pre primary, elementary, and secondary education, which is followed by higher studies. The system of 10 years of holistic studies plus 2 years of professional studies, which is in grade 11 and 12, is followed in the Indian education system of state boards and central boards as prescribed by the CBSE or Central Board of Secondary Education. I would now like to give the floor to Anum to explain the education system of Pakistan.
Uh, Thank you, Devyanee. I'll be talking about the education system in Pakistan, being belonging to the Pakistan. So the education system in Pakistan is very divided into six levels. That includes preschool, primary, middle, high, which consisting of preschool as 3 to 5 years, primary grade 1 to 5, middle grade 6 to through 8, high grade 9 and 10, leading to the secondary school certificate calling at as SSC level 2. Intermediate also has included the grades 11 and 12, which is leading to the high secondary school certificate HSSC. And we have some testing before testing for undergraduate and graduate degrees that includes pre-testing from the preparation of from our, some academies we have in Pakistan, and we have a school system separately for our levels and O levels, which include some Cambridge schools like Lahore Grammar School, like Nishat, like every school that offers the levels. We have certain level of difference from government and the private and the in the Cambridge schools. So we are following here two types of education system that includes matriculation or intermediate, and the other one is OA levels, which uh, which will be including a pre-testing for our undergraduates. Some of the universities are private, some of the universities are under the government, and some universities are led by the our semi-federal government. So still we are spending only 2% of the education system, 2% of our GDP, which is too low as compared to our defense. Only 67.5% of children could furnish primary school education, while the standard national system of education is mainly inspired from the English education system. We do not owe any culture for our education system. There is a belief of strong getting high numbers just because of cramming. We do not have a proper tech system, proper socialization for students, for the grooming, for the counseling. So that's how we have some lack at proper planning. There are some major subjects which includes arts, computer, ICT, and religious educations that includes Islamic studies. We that involves too much culture enormity that doesn't a big need. But since it's an education system, so and social so South Asian countries have a certain proper idea of following them. So we are just in that way.
Moving on, talking about the flaws in the Indian education system, the following problems are quite visible in the South Asian education system. The first one being the lack of amenities. So, what does it exactly mean? The lack of amenities means lack of equity and huge disparity in the way children experience education. Not only does this mean that children will face a huge gap in their education, but also affect the future generations and the future of the country, because as we know, children are the future of one's country, right? Making resources and amenities like internet, electronic devices, especially when COVID-19 has struck all over the world, grooming, counseling, making all of these things more equitable is essential to bridge this unwanted gap. The second very important flaw of the South Asian education system is the socio-economic crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic is casting a very big problem onto the education system in our countries. Um, the world has quickly moved into a state of crisis and things are getting shut down. I would like to quote the UN Secretary General, where he stated that children are not the face of the pandemic, but the risk being among its biggest victims. The larger economic crisis generated by the containment measures is a crisis that will push millions and millions of children and their families back into poverty, which will result in children dropping out of school and working at an age where they're supposed to learn, hold a pencil and not a hammer. The third and the last flaw of the education system, according to me, is the impact of disasters. Children are extremely vulnerable during emergencies. South Asia is prone to yearly flooding, landslides, droughts, and earthquakes. It is also a very conflict affected region. With the increase in environmental degradation, climate change, and unplanned management, there is a rise in occurrence of disasters. According to the SARC Disaster Management Center, South Asia accounted for 96.5% of the total numbers of disasters recorded globally in 2011. So that means that the rest of the world accounted for around 3.5 percentage. So just imagine having 96.5% of all the disasters happening in just 10 to 11 countries in the world. That's a big deal, right? This has had very serious implications for such a high populous region where a large number of people are poor, marginalized, and at risk. I would now like to give the floor to Sheen so that she could discuss about some policies to correct the mentioned flaws.
So the question that we really need to answer is, how is the education system different and better in the West? It is important for us to understand that the education system is better in the Western countries for numerous reasons. While we do not say the Western education system is perfect, it has more pros than cons. Similarly, we do not say that the South Asian education system is the worst. It has more cons than pros. Notably, more education burden on children, promotion of rote memorization, and dissuasion to speak and think out of the box among many. So let us go to the next slide and see some of the most prominent differences between Western and South Asian education. The first point discusses the difference between the curriculum being holistic or it being rigid. What is normally observed is that South Asian education system is a very rigid and does not really empower extracurricular activities or co-curricular activities. When we compare it to the Western education system, we find that the Western education system promotes co-curricular as well as academic education equally. Going to the next point, the Western education system is more learner centered. They are more concerned with making sure that the student understands the fact and that they understand the concept behind it. When we compare it to South Asian education system, what we find is that the education system is more teacher centered. They're more focused on making sure that whatever the teacher knows is transferred to the students. And so it is in the teacher's hand to decide what goes to the students and what does not go. And also, it does not really mean that the student understands the teacher's point of view. Maybe the way they were taught is not exactly the way they need to teach the students that they currently face. There is a there's a very potent need for teachers to change their methods to suit the students that they are teaching. It's not very necessary that they have to teach exactly how they were taught, but to accommodate the needs of the students now. That is one big problem that comes under the South Asian education system. Going to the next point, overall student development is noticed at Western education system. Not only are the students good academically, but they are also good at co-curricular activities, be it sports, music, dance, MUNs, debates. You can definitely see that the students are into more activities and they are encouraged to go and pursue fields which might be considered taboo in South Asian education system, where the academic development of the student is placed and is given the higher priority rather than making sure that they have skills that they will need in corporate and other sectors when they go out. Lastly, the fourth point that we think is very important and needs to be discussed is that Western education system tests a student's ability to handle various situations. Not only do they teach them academically, but they also initiate a conversation and a thinking about how they would handle various situations. When we compare this to the South Asian education system, we find that the South Asian education system tests a student's learning capacity. They don't really care about if the student can do do activities and things which are more important when they go out. It does not check if they are capable of interpersonal relationships or of communication. All that they want to see is that the student is able to rote memorize every single thing that is mentioned in the notebooks and the books which are prescribed by education ministries or whatever the administration system is in the particular countries. So moving on, I would now like to call Anum to discuss the possible reforms that can be implemented in South Asian education system to foster a better style of education in the South Asian countries.
Thank you so much, Shreem. So
Redo
we
it.
are now.
Anum, just
Am I audible?
yeah. Just redo it from now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sheen. Now we are looking into some possible reforms that are necessarily to be followed to make our education system a better ideology to gain. So, what do I feel, and what we all should feel now that government investments is the most important thing that need to be reformed in our policy. Every political policies or parties should include in their manifesto to bring innovation in government, in education, and they should have some more expenses than other priorities for our education investments. So education from the government investments, from the government infrastructure, our education ministry should be very strong and with the people who have some better idea to recognize the faults, to recognize the resources that needed to make our education system in South Asia better than the others. So accessibility is one of the points that is a major problem in most of the South Asian countries like Bangladesh, like Bhutan, like Pakistan, like India. We have some rural areas where we do not have a proper system of accessibility. We need to have some resources for our transportation system. We need to make a fee off for the transportation. We need to work on the transportation systems. We need to work on digital media if there is an issue of accessibility of a tutor and everything like this way. One more thing that I want to include in accessibility, we need to follow up for our differently abled students. We need to work on them. We want to make our education system inclusive for them as well. So accessibility comes in that way too. Investment on social and tech based education we need now. We are half of the population in South Asia is under 30. If we say k 90 in investment on social media and tech based education is not a point, so we are still at a point where we need to follow, where we need to see our grassroots level education. Tech based education, technology, and for our social grooming and counseling of the students for their mental health and mental well being is one of the finest point where we need to invest more and more of our the budget and our GDPs. So that's one of the point that we need to make every student fledged with internet, with a good accessibility. We need to follow the social organizations, and we need to follow the entrepreneurship skills in that way too. Up, Updated curriculum. So in India, in Pakistan, in other South Asian countries, we have a stereotypical curriculum. We do not show the proper gender equality. We do not teach the proper level of acceptance that we need. We show the cultural and social and economical and political biasness in our curriculum, especially when it comes to Pakistan and India. We have too many. We are so lucky to right now to have Sheen Devyanee with me, that we are sitting together and we're working for the mutual challenge we have in education system. So that's how we could do, and we need our curriculum. We do not know each other as enmity, but we know each other as friends. So we need to work on updated curriculum. In this way, we want to teach our upcoming future that we need to accept each other. We are friends with each other. We are okay with the acceptance. We need to reform our sciences level. We need to reform our new development of artificial intelligence in our updated curriculum. This is the contemporary challenges we have in our culture, we have in our countries. So the curriculum in our education system should be updated with the help of the contemporary challenges. Equitable resource management. Equitable resource management includes our every each and every one that resources wherever they are needed. In like in Pakistan, Fata, KPK, Waziristan, we have no resource of education. We do not have a proper school. We do not have proper internet there. Uh, we do not have some kind of transportation system there for girls. So we have a strong gender gap there. So the equitable resource management would help our government to introduce the better resource management for our the education system. We need to take everyone in our education system with us. We do not want any gender gap, any culture gap, any social class gap. So that's how we can make our education system better and better, and we can overcome the challenges we have already. Equitable resource management could only help in this way. Our government investments could play a great role, and the individual role could be a great resource as well in the management. That how we can see, if we see the poverty, if we can see our friends deprived of education, if we see any of the neighbors deprived of the education. So I guess it's our responsibility to take to the government investments and all the government resources that we already owe. So that's how we can treat everybody. So now over to Sheen.
Thank you, Anam. That was really good. I would now like to call Devyani to share the anticipated education system if we really do make sure that these reforms are followed through.
Thank you, Sheen. When we come to the part where we discuss about the anticipated education system, again, this is something that we as students studying in the current South Asian education system want. This is completely from our personal view. So the first difference which I would like to see is modernizing and extending current schooling, which would be more or less of what we see right now, content and spaces that are largely standardized across the system, primarily school-based, including digital delivery and homework, which is more focused on individual learning experiences. Digital technology is increasingly present because, again, online classes, but as is currently the case, is primarily used as a delivery method to recreate existing content and pedagogies rather to revolutionize teaching and learning. The second difference, which I think should be made, is that learning of the future should be built around a socio-constructive approach. In all these years of working in the realm of education and learning, again, in this system, my belief is that education is far more valuable when it's a collaborative process, which has been which strengthens the belief and the learning that all of us get through the system. A personalized learning environment that nurtures the inherent talent of each student when enabling them to design the unique learning projects and processes in collaboration with others is highly impactful. This is something which is commonly seen in the Western education system, the A level, IBDP, and IGCSE programs, which I think might be very helpful to students studying in state and central boards. And the third and the last difference, which I think should be made in the education system, is that students must be allowed to engage at their own pace without having to compete with peers or within the confines of a strict curriculum. The goal here is for children to become lifelong learners as adults so that they can be well capable of growing and adapting to the times. Having rigid curriculum or having rigid subject combinations just makes students take up subjects that they're not interested in and lose their entire and lose all the effort that they've made throughout the years. So having such stringent and rigid routines for people to stick to follow through the lines is very difficult and might be very overpowering for some students.
Thank you, Devyanee. That was a really, I would say, a well-supported and yeah, education system. I feel like everyone would agree that sometimes our education system is not as good as it seems to be. The biggest problem that I agree with Devyanee is the third point, that learning is not at our own pace. We have to take strict streams. At least for India, we are supposed to take subjects according to their branches. But I feel with the new education policy coming up, we can definitely see some more changes in the education system, because it's said to be revolutionary. And I really hope that the education system would change after the new education policy in India. But saying this on behalf of everyone who is studying in South Asia, we definitely feel that a big change could be seen. And we do hope that times do change and our future generations can study at a better pace and study what they really like, and be motivated to do more co-curricular activities. So we will now be having a Q&A session, and this session will not be recorded because we understand you all might have questions, and we just to make sure that your privacy is not a kind of is not violated, we are going to stop the recording right now, and we will record the rest of the workshop. All right, seeing as we have almost exhausted our session time, I would like to thank you all for tuning in today and participating so enthusiastically. Your participation means the world to us. We would also like to thank everyone at AERO for giving us this wonderful opportunity to present our thoughts at this workshop. We are sharing our contact details in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you all for joining in, and we look forward to seeing you all in the other wonderful sessions organized by AERO for all of you.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you, Sheen. See you all soon. Bye.
Bye.